Hello, fans. It's another edition of the XCFL 5th Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Big Daddy Dizzle. This week is week number 2 of the podcast, where we're going to cover in-season franchise weeks 4 through 6. So let's get started with what we like to start off every podcast with, and that's the XCFL topics of the week. We got plenty of team news, and starting with that, we had the 2017 Chiefs cheerleader calendar. The Dolphins re-signed Ndamukong Suh. The Bears had hired a new head coach. We had a Week 5 recap of the defense, still dominant, but the offense still stalling. The Browns coach Lynch returns after surgery. Raiders had another roundtable report for Week 4 versus the Patriots. We had a new look at the old habits of the Cardinals, but the start to the season with 4 straight losses. Josh Doctson was going to Seattle. Minor hiccup in the sign of things to come for Week 4. Check that report out. The Bengals hire White Jr. as their head coach. We'll talk a little bit about that. Williams rumored to be eyeing in Cincinnati. Another move there. The Bengals had welcomed Tyrann Honey Badger Mathieu. We'll talk about that in trades. Another Arrowhead update for the Chiefs. Williams purchased the Eagles and hired Jeremiah Trotter as their head coach. And the Eagles had also kept the Finns winless. Denver Mile High Meltdown, Week 3, Colts and Broncos recap. Check that out. Bengals playbook, Panthers playbook, and Carolina Panthers playbook again. And check out the XCFL magazine, Volume 7. That's emailed to you guys every Saturday. So let's get started with what we really want to talk about, and that's the trades. Let's get started with the trades on weeks 4 through 6. Stay tuned for that. Alright, let's start with the Week 4 trades. We had the Lions, who traded their left guard Riley Reiff to the Rams. The Rams traded back their 2020 round 3 90th overall draft pick to the Lions. The Bills traded their middle linebacker Reggie Ragland to the Chiefs. The Chiefs send back their 2020 round 2 41st overall pick to the Bills. The Buccaneers were also involved in a trade with the Chiefs, where the Buccaneers had traded their 2020 first round 19th pick and 32nd pick to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs in return send their first round second overall pick and their second round 42nd pick for the year 2021 back to the Buccaneers. Next trades, you had the Saints traded their left tackle Ted Karras to the Patriots, and the Patriots traded their right end DeMarcus Celestin to the Saints. Browns traded defensive tackle Danny Shelton to the Cardinals. Cardinals traded their 2020 round 2 56th overall pick to the Browns. Cardinals traded their 2020 round 4 112th pick to the Browns. Redskins traded their wide receiver Josh Doctson to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks traded their 2020 round 1 21st overall pick to the Redskins, and also traded their 4th round 117th pick to the Redskins. Week 6 trades, Vikings trade their cornerback Perry Jones-Peterson to the Cardinals. The Vikings trade their cornerback Mackenzie Alexander to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals also trade Tyrann Mathieu to the Vikings, and the Cardinals trade their cornerback Prince Iwara to the Vikings. Vikings trade their 2020 round number 1 14th overall pick to the Cardinals. Bengals trade their cornerback Tavon Young to the Saints, and the Saints trade their tight end Kobe Fleener to the Bengals. Bengals trade their tight end Salami Millie to the Colts, and the Colts trade their 2020 round 4 106th pick overall back to the Bengals. That takes care of the trades for weeks 4 through 6 in franchise. Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about the standings in the XCFL up until what is now currently in week 7. So some of these games may have an extra win or loss, so bear in mind. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about the standings next. Alright, we're back. Here we go. Let's talk about the XCFL standings starting in the AFC North. We're going to start with the Browns, who are ranked 8th overall, and they're 4-2. That's amazing that they're leading that division. What a turnaround for that Browns team. Steelers are in second, ranked 17th. at 3-3. The Bengals are ranked 18th at 2-5, and the Ravens are ranked 26th at 1-4. Next, we'll travel to the AFC South, where we have the 11th ranked Texans at 4-2, the 20th ranked Jaguars at 2-4, the 21 overall ranked Titans at 3-4, and the 30th ranked Colts at 1-6. AFC East, you have the Patriots at 6-0. They're undefeated. They're ranked number 1 right now in the XCFL. You have the Bills, who are ranked 5th at 6-1, the Jets, who are ranked 31st at 1-5, and the Dolphins, who are ranked 32nd at 1-5, who just picked up their first win. AFC West, you have the 7th overall ranked Chargers at 4-1, the 9th overall ranked Raiders at 4-2, the Broncos overall ranked 19th at 2-4, and the Chiefs ranked 28th at 1-4. Next, we go to the NFC, starting with the NFC North. You have the 3rd overall ranked Lions at 5-1. The 13th overall ranked Vikings at 3-2 have turned their season around. The Packers at 24 spot at 2-4, and the Bears at the 29 spot at 1-4. NFC South, you have the 2nd ranked Saints at 5-1, the 14th overall ranked Panthers at 3-2, the 16th overall ranked Buccaneers at 4-3, and the 25th overall ranked Falcons at 1-5. NFC East, you have the Cowboys, who are ranked 10th at 4-2, the Redskins, who are ranked 15th at 3-2, the Eagles, who are ranked 22nd at 3-4, and the Giants, who are ranked 23rd at 2-5. Finishing this off at the NFC West, you have the Seahawks, who are overall ranked 4th at 5-1, the Rams, who are ranked 6th at 6-1, the 49ers, who are ranked 12th at 3-2, and the Cardinals finishing that division at ranked 27th in the XCFL at 1-5. So in the NFL, the only undefeated team, in the XCFL, the only undefeated team you have right now is the Patriots, who are 6-0. Behind them are the Saints and Lions and Seahawks, all at 5-1. The Bills, Rams at 6-1, and the Chargers at 4-1. Behind them you have the Browns and Raiders, Cowboys and Texans, all at 4-2. Then you have the 49ers, the Vikings, the Panthers, and the Redskins at 3-2. The Buccaneers sit alone at 4-3. The Steelers are an even 500 at 3-3. The Bengals are 2-4. The Broncos, Jaguars are also 2-4. You have the Titans at 3-4. The Eagles at 3-4. The Giants at 2-5. The Packers at 2-4. Falcons at 1-5, Ravens at 1-4, Cardinals are also at 1-5, the Chiefs are at 1-4, the Bears are at 1-4, Colts are 1-6, Jets are 1-5, and at the bottom the Dolphins are 1-5, just picking up their first win recently. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the games that were played in weeks 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to recap a couple of those. Following that, we're going to finish things off with the playoff picture to talk about that. So next up, we're going to go ahead and get into the weekly game recaps. All right, folks, I got my notes here. Let's talk about week 4. Let's start it off with Green Bay, who beat San Diego at the time. Green Bay was 0-2. San Diego was 3-0. Green Bay had moved to 2-2 at that point. San Diego went to 3-1, picking up their first loss on the season. Jim had beat Boone 24-17, and Zach had beat ARV and the Buccaneers by 1 point, 24-23. The McMillans were rolling that week in week 4. We had an admin battle with Cincinnati at the time, with Brian, who was the owner at Cincinnati, who faced off against Dan the Man in Seattle. Seattle won that one 19-8. Another close matchup in the AFC South. You had the Jaguars, who had 36 points, and the Colts, who had 21. Battle of the coaches, Coach Yost versus Coach Doss. You had the 17-0 shutout by the Patriots over the Raiders. I'm sure Doss was salty about that one. Kansas City picked up their first win at home against their former team. Owner Albano Ferreira Sr., who's now coaching the Chiefs, former owner of the Bears, beats the 0-3 Bears, as the Chiefs were also 0-3 to pick up their first win. Finishing out week 4, you had the Cowboys, who beat the Giants 27-17. Let's go on to week 5. Cowboys again, starting things off in the same division against the Skins. They won that game 19-3. Coach Boone against Coach Yost. Yost wins that one in the coaches' battle 26-13. The Rams beat the Steelers 30-24. The Buccaneers beat the Panthers 28-14, which ended the coaching career of Derek Brooks in the Panthers. Hopefully we'll see him back next season. Also mentioning the Bengals as well, in week 4 we had Coach Klein, who also retired from the Bengals, which brings us to, let's finish up, Oakland had beaten Kansas City 19-9, and Coach Yshi Jr. moves from Cincinnati, or to Cincinnati from Philly. That's also talked about. Texas Kansas moves from, I believe he was coaching the Bears, and now he's moved to the Panthers. A lot of coaching moves going on in the XCFL right now. We're all settled with that. So let's move to week 6. With the 6-pack, we had the Cleveland Browns hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game ended 23-20. Atlanta Falcons played host to the Buccaneers and won that one by 3, 29-26. The Bills over the Cowboys, 20-13. Oakland Raiders over the Colts, 18-13. And the Seahawks beat the Rams in a sim due to matchup confliction, 38-21. San Diego beat Detroit 17-10, and we had advanced Friday night. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and finish this week's podcast up with the playoff predictions. That's up next. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the playoff predictions right now. Let's get started with the AFC playoff race. We have leading number 1 with the number 1 seed, of course, the Patriots. They're 6-0. They're 2-0 in the division, 5-0 in the conference. Behind them, the number 2 seed would be the Chargers at 4-1. They're also 2-0 in their division and 2-0 in the conference. Number 3, the Browns. What a surprising story here. They're 4-2. They're 3-0 in the division and 4-0 in the conference. That's huge. The Texans sit 4th right now at 4-2. They're 2-1 in the division and also 2-1 in the conference. The Bills sit 5th at 5-1. They're 3-1 in the division and also 3-1 in the conference. The Raiders finish out the top 6 at 4-2. They're 3-1 in the division and 4-2 in the conference. Sitting on the bubble at 7 is the Steelers at 3-3. They're 1-2 in their division and 3-2 in the conference. Sitting number 8 is the Bengals at 2-4. They're 1-1 in the division and 2-1 in the conference. Sitting 9th is the Broncos at 2-4. They're 0-1 in the division and 1-2 in the conference. And finishing out the top 10 would be the Jaguars at 2-4. They're 2-1 in the division and 2-2 in the conference. Moving over to the NFC playoff race, you have the 1 seed at 5-1 is the Saints. They're 2-1 in the division and also 2-1 in their conference. The Lions are sitting 2nd at 5-1, 3-0 in the division, 4-0 in the conference. I'd beg to differ there. I'm not sure why the Detroit's not the number 1 seed, considering they're undefeated in both division and conference. Moving on to the 3rd-ranked Seahawks, who are 5-1. They are 3-0 in the division and 3-1 in the conference. 4th, you have the Cowboys, who are 4-2. They're 2-0 in the division and 3-0 in the conference. The Rams are 5th at 5-1. They are 1-1 in their division and 2-1 in the conference. The San Francisco 49ers sit 6th at 3-2. They're 0-1 in the division, 2-2 in the conference. On the bubble, the 7th-ranked Vikings are 3-2. They are 1-1 in the division and 2-2 in the conference. Number 8 are the Panthers at 3-2, 1-2 in their division and 2-2 in the conference. 9th, you have the Redskins at 3-2. They are 1-2 in the division and 2-2 in the conference. Finishing out the NFC at number 10 in the playoff race, you have the Buccaneers at 4-3. They're 2-1 in the division and 4-2 in the conference. That wraps up the playoff race, so we're going to go ahead and finish things up here in just a bit with what's coming up next week in the podcast for week 3. Stay tuned for that. Alright, XCFL fans, that takes care of the Week 2 podcast. Coming up in Week 3, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the legacy leaderboard in the XCFL. We're going to discuss the records that are coming up for this year. Week 8 will open up the award race for the XCFL. We're also going to talk about the final trades that have taken place because we are currently in Week 7, which means we're approaching the Week 8 trade deadline, which will take place within this next week before the next podcast. And we'll go ahead and then talk about some more statistical leaders in the XCFL and take a look at some of the rookies that are leading the way in their first year of the XCFL. Well, that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Until next week, it's your boy, Big Daddy Dizzle. Go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at BigDaddy_Dizzle. Until next time, folks, I'm out.